بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. باب الوصاة بالجار، يعني الوصية بالجار. حدثنا إسماعيل بن أبي أويس قال حدثني مالك عن يحيى بن سعيد قال أخبرني أبو بكر بن محمد بن عمره، أبو بكر بن محمد عن عمره عن عائشة رضي الله عنها عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. Right, so this is a super sahih hadith. It's in Bukhari as well. And this is indicative of the centrality of the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Why is the Muwatta of Imam Malik so important? Because it is the core, right? The heart of the 6 books. So in this hadith, Imam Malik says, Ismail ibn Abi Uwais narrates to me saying, Hadathani Malik. So i.e. we're reading the Muwatta of Imam Malik. That's what it is. Right, so then this says Malik narrates from Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, the Qadi of Medina, the judge of Medina, who said to him, Akhbarni Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad, I believe ibn Hazm, who narrated from Amrah, the servant of Aisha, from Aisha radiallahu anha. Right, so this is how the hadith, so this is a classic chain you'll find in the Muwatta, and this is the centrality of the Muwatta, right? How Imam Bukhari and people of his generation, they are studying with the students of Imam Malik, right? So the whole world is traveling to Medina to go and study with Imam Malik from Spain, from Central Asia to here and there. And then Imam Malik, so Imam Bukhari, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, these people, they're all studying with Imam Malik's students, right? Okay. So he says, go ahead, Mustafa, you can read the first hadith.
Aisha reported that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, Jibril, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, kept on recommending that I treat neighbors well until I thought that he would order me to treat them as my heirs.
Mm-hmm. So he thought it would actually get to the stage where it actually has to give them money when you died. حدثنا صدقة قال أخبرنا ابن عيينة عن عمرو، this is عمرو بن دينار، عن نافع بن جمير عن أبي شريح الخزاعي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليحسن إلى جاره، ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليكرم ضيفه، ومن كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Okay, go ahead.
Abu Shurayha al-Khuzai reported that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, anyone who believes in Allah and the last day should be good to his neighbors. Anyone who believes in Allah and the last day should be generous to his guests. Anyone who believes in Allah and the last day should say what is good or be silent.
Mm-hmm. Right, so the first part of the hadith is the reason why he's quoting it, to be good to your neighbors. And so being good to your neighbors on 2 levels. Is this, so you should be very, very careful because it's very easy. Again, it's easy to harm your wife. It's very easy to harm your husband, and it's very easy to harm your neighbor. So we should be very careful and fear Allah. That's way more important. Let's say, for example, I leave my trash out for 3 days. What has literally happened, albeit on a very minor level, what has literally happened when I leave my trash outside? My trash gets picked up on the Tuesday morning. I leave my trash out and I leave it for 3 days. Literally, what's happened is the value of the houses has decreased. Like literally, has it decreased a lot? Not that much, but it has. Right? If there's a crime that happens in my house, if I shout in my house and the police have to come around to deal with domestic violence or whatever, people hearing these, husband and wife are shouting really loud and like, oh my God, what's going on? The police have to turn up. The fact that the police have to turn up decreases the property value. So you've literally taken something from your neighbor. So this issue of halal haram, right? It's an issue of halal haram, right? And so, a death, let's say the police keep going to your house because somebody died. It's not your fault, is it? Or your house gets broken into. That's not your problem. But doing things like that, it's like, you have to be careful, right? You have to be careful because you don't realize it. So I remember being a teenager. I lived with myself for a while, and like I don't like my parents didn't particularly care about mowing the lawn. It wasn't a thing that we did, right? It was like my mum didn't like mowed lawns, thought it looks horrible, and my neighbors they were like, please mow the lawn because your lawn is in front of our house and their house is behind some trees. It was like they didn't like it, so I didn't see it as like a big thing. It was kind of annoying. Like basically the neighbors are kind of being annoying, right? They kind of just asking us to do something they don't really want to do. Like my parents don't really particularly care about it. And they just complain now and then, okay, fine, do it, right? But it is an issue, right? Like it is an issue. And then sometimes you don't realize, like, oh my God, should I have been reading Quran or should I have been mowing my lawn? What's more important? Now, like, oh yeah, it makes total sense, right? Go home, what's the priority? Don't go read Quran, go and mow the lawn because it's very relevant to your neighbors. But sometimes we don't understand these things, right? We don't understand, for example, the awlawiyat, the priorities that Allah has for us. And so that's really, really important. Fearing Allah concerning other people is way more important than doing sunnahs or doing this or doing that. So you should always think, what is the priorities? There's this, there's this, there's this. Ya Allah, ista'manni bi ahabbi shay'i ilayk. Oh Allah, use me for that thing that you love the best. Whether it's doing sunnahs or doing something else that's important or doing something that's even more important. And then the last one is the last part of the hadith. Say that which is good. Say, well, it was true what I was saying. Yeah, but it wasn't good what you were saying. It's not a useful thing to say. Well, all I said it was your fault that we're late. And it's true, it is your fault that we're late. Okay, but it's not a useful thing to say. It's not useful, right? So is it true? Is it nice? Is it useful? You have to go through that process before you speak. Most of what we say is not useful. Okay. Okay, Bismillah. Next chapter, the neighbor's due, the haqq, the due to the neighbor. باب حق الجار. حدثنا أحمد بن حميد قال حدثنا محمد بن فضيل عن محمد بن سعد قال سمعت أبا ظبية الكلاعية قال سمعت مقداد بن الأوس يقول سأل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أصحابه عن الزنا قالوا حرام حرمه الله ورسوله فقال لأن يزني الرجل بعشر نسوة أيسر عليه من أن يزني بامرأة جاره وسألهم عن السرقة قالوا حرام حرمه الله عز وجل ورسوله فقال لأن يسرق من عشرة أهل أبيات أيسر عليه من أن يسرق من بيت جاره. Okay, go ahead, um, Mustafa.
Al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, asked his companions about fornication, and they said, it is unlawful. Allah and his Messenger have made it unlawful. He said, it is less serious for a man to fornicate with 10 women than for him to fornicate with his neighbor's wife. Then he asked them about stealing. They replied, it is unlawful. Allah and his Messenger have made it unlawful. He said, it is less serious for a man to steal from 10 houses than it is for him to steal from his neighbor's house.
Right. So this is the again the people, things vary, places and times and people and events change, right? Being kind to an orphan is not like being kind to a normal child, right? Being kind to somebody who needs your help is not like being cruel, for example, to a man, being cruel to your father. It's not the same, right? And so the fact that this person is your neighbor and they need to rely on you, they need to trust you, they need to have that ability that they can trust you, right? It's very important. And the fact that you now betray that trust, you cannot trust your neighbor. Where are we if you can't trust your neighbor, right? That's the whole point. And so it's such a great thing, such a huge thing, right? That's why, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, he said, be careful of entering upon women, right? And they said, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ حَمَ, what about your brother-in-law? And they said, your brother-in-law is death, right? So for you to have, for a woman to have an affair with some guy is haram. For a woman to have an affair with her brother-in-law is death. It would destroy so many things, right? One destroys something, the other thing destroys things on a much bigger level. The Prophet ﷺ forbade, for example, a man marrying both an aunt and a niece. You can't marry a woman and her niece. You can't do that, right? Because it tears people apart, right? Or two sisters. You can't marry two sisters, right? You can't do that. Even if you had two female slaves, you couldn't do that. You couldn't sleep with both of them because it tears that brother and sister, the sisterhood apart. You can't do that. And so there's certain things that these are so important that this is way more serious. Killing somebody and killing somebody in the haram, killing somebody and killing your family member. It's not the same. And so your neighbor needs to be able to trust you. And if you break that trust, right? And the same thing, for example, looking at somebody with lust, right? You sort of looked at a woman walking down the street. That's haram. Okay. But you looked at your neighbor's wife like that. It's even worse. Like, I need to be able to trust you. And you didn't do it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I was your neighbor and I trusted you. And you broke that trust. You said, yeah, Allah, you weren't my neighbor. You're Allah. He says, yeah, but had you shown that trust to that neighbor, then you would have found me there, right? You would have found me with you, and you would have found that trust with me. And so it's such an important thing, right? It was understand, these small things, these small things are big things. These small things are very big things, right? So Allah protect us all and understand the rank of our neighbor. So this hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmad and Imam al-Mundhiri. He said that the narrators are reliable. It's not in Bukhari, it's not in Muslim, it's not in any of the 6 books. Okay. باب يبدأ بالجار. حدثنا محمد بن منهال قال حدثنا يزيد بن زريع قال حدثنا عمر بن محمد عن أبيه عن ابن عمر أنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. Go ahead, go ahead.
Ibn Umar reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, said, Jibril kept on recommending that I treat my neighbors well until I thought that he would order me to treat them as my heirs.
Good. So isn't this exactly the same hadith as the 101?
Maybe one of the different chains.
Exactly, a different chain. So it's a totally different chain. So one is from Aisha through Imam Malik and it's a Medinan chain. The other one is not a Medinan chain at all. This is an Iraqi chain or something like that. It's a totally different chain. And it's in Bukhari and Muslim. So we're going to see that then Imam Bukhari quoting one hadith from one Sahabi, another hadith from another Sahabi that's also Sahih, another one. So that means the Prophet ﷺ maybe said it 20 times, right? And then many of the Sahaba heard it, okay? Or he maybe said 100 times. Many of the Sahaba heard it, okay? They have an opportunity to share it with other people at certain times. They shared it. Their students have an opportunity to share it with other people at certain times. And it has reached us through 3 independent chains at least, right? So therefore it becomes nigh fact, right? It gets to the point where it's like fact. And that's how the Quran has reached us. The Quran hasn't reached us through Abu Hurairah alone, or through Abdullah ibn Amr alone, or from Aisha alone. It's narrated by all of the Sahaba, right? That becomes mutawatir, multiple independent chains of transmission, right? So we see one chain here is 101, totally different chain for different Sahabi, also Sahih, is 104, okay? And then 105, حدثنا محمد بن سلام قال أخبرنا سفيان بن عيينة عن داود بن شابور وأبي إسماعيل عن مجاهد. So this is from عن عبد الله بن عمرو أنه ذبحت له شاة فجعل يقول لغلامه أهديت لجارها اليهودي أهديت لجارها اليهودي سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ما زال جبريل يوصيني بالجار حتى ظننت أنه سيورثه. Go ahead.
Mujahid reported that a sheep was slaughtered for Abdullah ibn Amr. He asked his slaves, "Have you given any to our Jewish neighbor? Have you given any to our Jewish neighbor?" I heard the Messenger of Allah, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, say, "Jibril kept on recommending that I treat my neighbor as well until I thought that he had ordered me to treat them as my heirs."
Right. So this is Islamic Zionism, right? Have such disdain for non-Muslims that the Prophet ﷺ said, Archangel Gabriel came to you and said, look after your Jewish neighbor, right? SubhanAllah. Right? This is how you're supposed to treat. This is why big people became Muslim. They weren't forced to become Muslim, but they saw this kind of thing. And so he's saying, right, he didn't just say neighbor, your Jewish neighbor. He's not even a Muslim, right? And so that's 105. And then 106. So 106, he says here, is same as 101. It's not though. Okay. So 106 goes through Imam Malik. Okay. So this hadith says حدثنا محمد بن سلام قال أخبرنا عبد الوهاب الثقفي قال سمعت يحيى بن سعيد. Okay. So what Imam Bukhari is trying to do, Imam Bukhari and the Muhaddithin in general, they are trying to find what's called the madar. The madar is the central point where the hadith merges. Okay? And they do that for various reasons, but on a simple reason is the higher the madar, the closer the merging point of a chain transmission with the Prophet, the less likelihood there is of error. Okay? I'll give you an example right now. So let's do a new whiteboard. How do we do this? Okay, so here's the hadith. Here's the text, okay? Gabriel kept on advising me, da, 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 da. That's the hadith, okay? And then, who said it? It was Aisha, right? So Aisha is what's called the source so far. So what they're trying to do is trying to find as many other sources that will go back to Aisha. Okay? Because then the room for error is just Aisha herself. Maybe she misheard, maybe she made a mistake. Possible. Not likely, but it's possible. But at least it's just one person. Okay? If they can't find it merging at Aisha, they're going to say, well, where else is it going to merge? Okay, well, it merged with, for example, Amra. Okay, the maid of Aisha radiallahu anha. Okay, and if it can't merge there, it merges at where's the level before, which was Abu Bakr ibn Hazm, right? Pretty sure this is Abu Bakr ibn Hazm. Allahu alam. Okay, and if it's not Abu Bakr ibn Abu Bakr. And if you can't merge there, then at least at Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, the Qadi, the judge of Medina. Okay. So what I will do is I am in 4th century, I'm somewhere down here in 4th century, Central Asia. Okay. 4th century, Central Asia. I'm in Balkh, for example. I'm in Balkh in modern day Afghanistan. Balkh. Okay. I'm going to be studying with my teachers, and they will say so and so narrates from so and so, from so and so, back to Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, back to this person. So they'll have, right, a chain will be like this: teacher, from teacher, from teacher, and this here, teacher, teacher. Okay, teacher. Let's say there's five people. Let's say something like that. Okay, there's like four people between me, okay, and Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. Okay, so it goes, my teacher, I'm in Balkh, and the teacher who's teaching in this masjid in Balkh says so and so, that my teacher said, that his teacher said, that his teacher said that Yahya ibn Sa'id will do this. Okay, now what they'll do is they travel somewhere else. I'm now going to go from Balkh to Samarkand. Okay, and now they're going to have different teachers who have the same information going back to Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. And then they're going to go to Bust, right? Also in Afghanistan. Now I'm going to go to Egypt. Oops. Now I'm going to go to Fustat in Egypt. Now I'm going to go to Medina. And I have all these separate chains and they all converge and merge around Yahya ibn Sa'id. Now what I can do, right? Now what I can do is I can say these people don't even matter. If they made a mistake or did a mistake, it's irrelevant. Now I know as a historical fact that Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari said it because I have multiple independent sources to hear, or at least a lot of sources anyway. Okay, a lot of sources going back to here. Okay, and if I can find a chain that will skip out Yahya as well, even better, because now my sources all converge around this person, and if etc., they'll go back to here. Okay, so they're going to try and find what's called a sanad ali, right? That the convergent point is higher because if the convergent point is higher, there is less chances for error. Does that make sense? Whereas the lower the conversion point, that means they all converge, for example, in the 4th century, and then through that there could be all sorts of errors. So does that make sense? This is Jahanara Mustafa Zubaydah.
Not 100%.
Okay, let's take another scenario at school. Okay, somebody somebody brought something to school that they shouldn't have. Okay, somebody brought something to school that they shouldn't have. You're in grade 2, and these grade 2 kids that you see he has something he shouldn't have. So you go to him and you say, "Where'd you get this from?" He says, "Oh, I got it from this other kid in grade 2." So you go to him, "Where'd you get it from?" He says, "Oh, this other kid in grade 2." Okay, where'd you get it from? This other kid in grade 2. So now they all go back to that one person in grade 2. Okay, but imagine if each of those persons said, "This kid in grade 5 gave it to me." And the other one says, so then it all goes back to that person. So now with the discussion, who are you going to bring into the principal's office? The kid in grade 5, right? But before you're going to bring the other kid in grade 2. But if they all go back to the person, now you know where. And he says, oh, this kid in high school. You say, well, which kid in high school? He says him. So now that's the person you're going to bring in. So what you're trying to do is the more people in your chain, the more room for error. It's become like the game telephone, right? We call it in England, we call it Chinese whispers, right? And so the more people that can corroborate your evidence, you now know that that person that there's more people corroborating, and now there's less chance of error, and the error is only found in these 2 or 3 places, right? So you'll find, for example, scholars will do this. They'll try and find that same hadith but narrated by somebody else higher up in the chain. Does that make sense now?
Yes, Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So they're always trying to do, so what is the fundamental thing that's in their head is human error, right? Human error. They're not just trying to find names. They just know there's human error, and the shorter the gap, between them and the Prophet ﷺ are better. And the way you can do that is by comparing and contrasting. So you have more and more chains from different places in the world, and then you see they all converge at this point, right? And so therefore, that's the place that you're going to start critiquing. Now you're going to ask, is that person reliable or not? But if I have 10 people, they all said that this person said this, I don't need to know if they're reliable or not. Or two people that say the same thing. I just go to the person that they're quoting. Now I start critiquing it, right? So that's why. So in the translator said, oh, 1 and 6 are the same. Not really. Imam Bukhari intentionally is quoting the same hadith with a different chain that merges at Sa'id ibn Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, but it skips out Imam Malik. So therefore, Imam Malik could have not made a mistake there. It's not possible. And now I have to. So now the question is, who's Yahya ibn Sa'id? And say, well, Yahya ibn Sa'id's amazing. This is the Qadi of Medina. He's well known. Okay, well, who's Abu Bakr al-Hazm? Oh, he's well known too. Okay, well, who's Amra? She's well known too. Okay, who's Aisha? Aisha's Aisha. Oh, okay, great. Right. And so the shorter the chain, or they call it the higher. They use the word higher, like it's like the process is at the top. So then you've got 2 people, you've got 3 people, you've got 4 people. The higher chain, the better. So Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, what do I want in life? He said, I want baytun khali wa sanadun ali. Right. Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, I want a house that's empty. I don't want anything in my house. And I want a chain transmission that's super short. Right. I want to see a hadith that I can delete all the people all the corroborating people and say, just between me and the Prophet, there's just 2 people or just 1 person. And important.
So a shorter chain is better?
Shorter chain is better because each person carries a potential of error. If you can imagine Aisha radiallahu anha, let's say, for example, the chance of her making a mistake, let's say, is 1 out of 1,000. Okay. So I'm going to give her, for example, 1 out of 1,000. She has, so the chances that she is right is 99.9%. Okay. So I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying it's 99.9% true. Now I add somebody narrating from her Amra. Okay. Now I add that as well. She has 99.9% chance of making an error from her, someone who spent a long time with Amra. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to add to that chain Abu Bakr ibn Hazm, and he's amazing as well. Abu Bakr ibn Hazm. Okay, and he's going to add. He's 99.9% chance of accurately narrating what he hears from Amra. Right. I'm not saying he can't make a mistake, but it's negligible. Okay, now the Qadi of Medina, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. He now narrates from him. And again, he's really good, solid, 100% person, right? Not everybody's 99%, but these people are 99%. They're really, really good. Okay. Now, what Imam Bukhari he's done, he said, I don't need to go beyond that. This is now my so what percent Mustafa, can you do this? What's 99.9% times 99.9% times 99.9% times 99.9%? What percent does it come to? So my level of certainty is Mustafa still there? Is he not at home, Sister Johanna?
Sorry, no, he is at home. So we have to multiply by 4.
No, to percentage in order to do probability, you have to times it by each other. So we're going to do. So it's going to be this over 1,000 to the power of 4. to the power of 4. So times itself. So let's get Mustafa to do it because he's the math man. So Mustafa, what is 99% of 99% of 99% of 99%? Or how do if I yeah, so 99.9 times 99.9 times 99.9 times 99.9. What does it equal?
I got something like 996
Good.
million.
So you've got 996, but the point is now, it is now 99.6%, okay? So the chance of error now has increased. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Right? So this is the point, Sister Jahanara. Every stage, my chances of error is now increasing. Now, this is negligible, right? Before there was 0.1% error, right? And these are just estimations, of course. And now, because each person adds their chance of error, I now increase it. Now, imagine if I keep going for 1,000 years. Okay, so this is over, for example, this is over like 100 years. So now I keep doing that for 1,000 years. Each 1,000 years, there's another 4 people that I may add to it. Eventually, the percentage will get down to 80%, 70%, 60%, 50%. And so if my chain of transmission back to Imam Malik, back to the Prophet was not corroborated at any stage, and I couldn't find a point of conversion, I couldn't find anybody else corroborating that, then I would basically lose the deen. Because my surety of this hadith or any other hadith would be something like 60%, 40%, right? And these are good narrators, right? And we would become like the Jews. So today, for example, you come along and say, meet a rabbi, and he says, "What's your chain of transmission for the Torah?" They have a chain transmission. They do these kind of things. They memorize the Torah. They have a chain transmission. They say, "Well, Bar so and so or whatever, Rabbi so and so gave me ijazah from Rabbi so and so, from Rabbi so and so, Rabbi so and so," and it goes back to Sayyidina Musa. I say, "Well, when was Sayyidina Musa, for crying out loud?" It's like, that was ages ago. Okay, and each of these people, do you even know how accurate they were? So at least with Amra, I know. I can go and research. Who is Amra? When was she? Who did she, like, how accurate is she? Right? Is she a 99% or is she an 80% or is she 50%? I need to know the information. They don't even have that information. They just have a chain transmission back to Sayyidina Musa. No idea what's going on. And so even if it was reliable, the fact that it's not corroborated over 1,000 years would mean that any percentage of error becomes huge, right? So that's why someone like Bukhari, he's going to narrate the same hadith from Aisha from 2 different people. So now that level of certainty stops there. It doesn't get any smaller. Because the lower you go, right, the more people in that chain, the less corroboration is, the more chance of error. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Particularly if, for example, you had people who aren't amazing. So these people are amazing, right? These are all amazing people. And so he's kind of like, his point here is kind of academic. It's like, okay, I mean, number one, this hadith is being confirmed by 3 other Sahabi. So, I mean, the chance of error in the content is basically negligible. And on top of that, you're talking about a hadith from Imam Malik, so it's kind of like silly. Okay, it's academic, well, it's kind of silly here, but it's not normally silly, right? Because you will find other hadiths, right? You will find other hadiths where it will literally be somebody who is in the 7th century Hijri, okay? So this person is 600 years after the Prophet ﷺ, and they say, my sheikh said that my sheikh said that my sheikh said that, and they say have a hadith. And so we don't accept that. So why? What's wrong with it? Your shuyukh are not reliable? They're all reliable, but it's too long. The chain is too long now. So number one, the potential for error has just got too big, A, and B, it's too odd. This is something else. It's now too odd that the hadith has not become widespread. That's too weird. That doesn't make sense that after 600 years, this hadith has remained a secret between you and your group of friends. Right? It's not possible. So that's another thing, is that how unlikely is it that this hadith should not spread by this time? Okay, and so that's something else. But the point is, they want to try and find as many people narrating from that same narrator as possible in order to stop the probability of error increasing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But the key thing in their mind is there is a probability of error, i.e., a sahih hadith might be wrong. That's a key thing in their minds because they are working with it. They travel the lands and they see, oh my God, my sheikh made a mistake. They're like, oh, it happened. Like Imam Malik makes mistakes. Imam so-and-so, like these great people make mistakes. It happens. And so they know that nobody's safe from making a mistake. And so, they know that it can happen. A Sahabi can make a mistake. It happens. But that's a key thing in people's minds. People think a Sahih hadith means a true hadith. It's not true. A Sahih hadith means 90%, 80% hadith, right? It doesn't mean that it's actually true, right? And so again, if we compare this hadith to the previous hadith, where was it? Hadith 103. This hadith 103 is not on the same level at all. So it just says it's in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and like these people are not well-known people particularly, and so it's not the same. So that's more like each person is more like an 80%. So imagine, for example, each person was 80%. Let's say the Sahabi is 100%. Okay, forgot. But let's say, for example, imagine if this person was 80%. Imagine if this, like, you could trust him 90%. Okay, let's say I can trust this person 90%, and this person 90%, and this person 90%. He's good, but they have mistakes. And this person, right, 90%. And how many people? The previous hadith 103, where was it? 103 had between Imam Bukhari, okay, and the author, there was one, and the Prophet ﷺ, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing, 4 people. Right. So now what's the level of certainty? What's 90% times, what's 99.9% times 90% times 90% times 90%? What's the potential of error here then? Or what's the percentage of certainty? Mustafa. Right. So it doesn't, I didn't change the names, but just have an idea, right? So 90% times 90% is 81%, right? And 81% times 90% is, what is it? 81 times 0.9 is like 72%, 73%.
Yeah.
Right? So now, if that's a normal hadith, like it's not a super hadith, then I have a 70% chance of certainty, 30% chance of error. Right? And I'm going to say, yeah, it's reliable, right? But how reliable? Right? What if I add to that, for example, unknown? Right? This could happen. So-and-so unknown. I don't know how good this person is. So now I've got to add to that another thing. It's like I don't really know what's going on. How much certainty I have. I don't know. Like it's kind of getting to gray areas. So if there's for example a gap in the chain, so I know this person is reliable, and I know this person is reliable. I don't know the person who in the middle. I don't know who this person is, or there's no name at all, or I don't know how reliable they are. They're not known to narrate hadith. So I'm not sure that they make mistakes. I don't know. So it gets even more problematic. Right? So again, the further up you go, the less, right, the less kind of probability of error there is.
No, Alhamdulillah, now I understood completely.
Okay. But this, again, this is lost on people. This is why I really don't like doing hadith books without a chain transmission, because you think you're hearing the words of the Prophet ﷺ. There's a difference. When I'm hearing the Quran, I am hearing the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He definitely said these words multiple times and repeated it again and again and again. He said, memorize it and repeat it. Whereas a hadith, he may have said it once or twice, and it may have been this word, or it might be slightly different, or it might be slightly different, or it might be slightly different. It could be great confidence, meaning there's a 1% chance, 2% chance of error, or it could be genuine percent chance of error. And you're saying, but the hadith is sahih. You say, yeah, it's sahih, but what does sahih mean? What does that actually mean? Right? Like I remember, and then, and then when you play with these percentages, you see things. I remember I bought I bought my first car, and it was a used car, right? And it broke down, right? I remember Mikhail breaking down, and Mikhail, my wife was pregnant with Mikhail, and I was like, this is so difficult. We're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and and my wife's like, pregnant, and I'm stuck in the like, why didn't I just buy a new car, right? So my friend says, Fareed, if you bought a brand new Porsche, it could still stop in the middle of the street, right? It's an issue of percentage. So you buy an old car, it's more likely, but it may not break down. And a new, very high class car, it might, it happens. You get a brand new Porsche and it just stops in the middle of the street. It happens, right? And so this is life, right? We have to understand that there's a big difference between like raw math and then life, medicine, hadiths, history, books. When you're dealing with these things, it's error. So we have to navigate error, right? Navigate the chance of error. And that helps us understand fiqh. But if people don't understand that, it's just black and white. It's like, no, it's like the Prophet said it, khalas. So, well, number one, could the language be understood in a different way? Number two, did he actually say those words, or did he say words that are similar to them? Or was it slightly this or slightly that, etc.? So the scholars, they're working with these things, and you see it, they see it firsthand, and so they see these things, etc. Okay, bismillah. Let's continue. Next hadith. So number 6, no, it's not the same as number 1. Okay, but this is again, why would you not study Sahih Bukhari? Because Sahih Bukhari is doing these very technical, subtle things that are like, oh my God, I understand what you're doing and I value it, but I don't want to do it. That's what he does in Sahih Bukhari. Right, Sahih Bukhari is a very, very technical work. Is a technical book for technicians, right? For technical people. It is not your average book to read. It is not useful. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to sit down and just hear Sahih Bukhari, right? People would do that in the past. I just want to hear it, mashallah, for the barakah. But it's a very technical book. It's not a book for the layman to use. This book he's not doing that technical things here. He's not trying to show you what's right and what's wrong and the errors and the this and the that. He just does that here and there, right? But most of it, he's just saying, I'm just quoting hadith for you. Here we go, right? So it's a very different kind of thing. Okay, next hadith. Babu yabda'u bil jar. Did I skip something? Yes, I skipped. 550. 557 here. What did I skip? Oh, no, I did. Yeah, sorry, 58. Okay. 58. Babu yuhda ila aqrabihim baban. So he says, حدثنا حجاج بن منهال قال حدثنا شعبة قال أخبرني أبو عمران. So this is Shu'bah ibn Hajjaj, right? One of the great hadith scholars. So he has a funny story. So once one of his teachers said, I heard this hadith. He said, who said? And so he said, well, who did you hear it from? Right? Because I need the chain transmission. So it says from so-and-so. Okay, well, who did he hear it from? Oh, from so-and-so. Right? And then he followed this chain all across Arabia, and it came back to his own town. Right? And so this is the difference between being pedantic and not being pedantic. Right? It's like, who did you hear it from? From so-and-so. Okay, who did he hear it from so-and-so? Okay, who did he hear it from? So-and-so and so-and-so, so-and-so. When you start finding all these, when you start going through a system, you then find the errors. And like, oh, that's what's going on here. It's like this, it's like that. right? So this is this world of hadith science, which is a cutthroat world of trying to find what on earth is going on. And 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with halal haram, and it has nothing to do with what's good or what's bad. It's just the technicalities. But you need people to do that. Otherwise, these errors will not be found. So it says حدثنا حجاج بن منهال قال حدثنا شعبة قال أخبرني أبو عمران. And one of my teachers, he has a book called من النبي إلى البخاري, right? From the Prophet ﷺ to Bukhari, like development hadith. So he talks about Shu'bah as an analogy, and he says Shu'bah's standards for critiquing narrators were so object that they could be applied to himself, right? So that he found his own errors, or at least his own errors could be shown through his own system. So the point is they have a system. A Christian does not have a system. Jews do not have. No other religion has a self-editing system of how to critique themselves. No other religion came up with hermeneutics like Imam Shafi'i and the usul people, scholars did, of how to analyze language and how to analyze Quran and Sunnah in order to extract halal and haram. They don't exist, right? It's very, very important to understand these things, right? So Islam is like this amazing wife, okay? And the husband's just ticked off with her, like, oh, I had enough of you. It's like, fine, you had enough of me, that's fine. Go and find any other woman that treats her husband like I do. Go and find any other woman that cooks like I do. Go and find any other woman who is as patient as I am. Go and find any other woman who is as beautiful as I am. And then he goes out and he says, well, so and so, and then realize that's just a picture. And then this, and then this, and you're like, oh my God, that's true. Like, Islam is actually really amazing. It is really amazing, but it's a Cinderella in that it's not appreciated. And people don't know how amazing it is. Right? When you go and speak to a Christian about Christianity, it's horrible. So oppressive on so many levels. But we just see, oh yeah, they don't wear hijab. Oh yeah, they drink alcohol. It's great. It's like that's not what's happening. Right? Go and speak to people about their religion. It's really weird. Like Islam is it's just a beautiful religion. It's like amazing. And so go and speak to just look at any religion and see how they critiqued their sources. They themselves critiqued their sources and questioned whether or not they could trust their own sources like Islam. Nobody. That's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined it to be preserved, whereas other religions were not designed to be preserved. So he says, أخبرني أبو عمران قال سمعت طلحة عن عائشة قالت قلت يا رسول الله إن لي جارين فإلى أيهما أهدي قال إلى أقربهما منك بابا. Okay, go ahead, Mustafa.
Aisha said, I said, Messenger of Allah, I have two neighbors. To whom should I give my gifts? He replied, to the one whose door is nearer to you.
Okay, as opposed to she doesn't give gifts anyway, right? And these are poor people, right? They didn't have things. She didn't say, oh, I'm poor, it's okay, right? So it's a major thing that we need to see in men and women, but particularly when women are naturally stingy. It's a normal thing to be stingy. Why are they naturally stingy? Because they're designed to look after their nest. They're designed to look after their nest. So if a woman was like a spendthrift, it would be really annoying. She gives all the food to the neighbors all the time. It would be very annoying. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made her be jealous for her own chicks, for her own family. And she keeps more clothes, and she keeps, things for the kids, and she keeps food things by nature. So by nature, she has to then she has to fight against her nature, say, well, that's true. I do have to be reasonable, but I should give as well. And my children are not going to die if I give things away, right? So, so they have to fight against that, right? And men by nature are more generous because they are there to give to society, and they should work against that and be, for example, not necessarily be like that. So and from another point of view, they can be stingy as well from other angles, right? But we have to work against this and be generous, particularly when we don't have much. حدثنا محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا محمد بن جعفر قال حدثنا شعبة عن أبي عمران الجوني عن طلحة بن عبد الله رجل من بني تيم بن مرة عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت قلت يا رسول الله إن لي جارين إلى آخره. So it's the same hadith, and so he has a different chain transmission. Why? Exactly the same reason. He says, I want to find the same chain. So he finds now he has two chains that go back to Shu'bah. So there's between him and Shu'bah, there was 1, 2. And now he's skipped that. He's done time travel. So you can actually do time travel, right? You can do time travel by finding corroborating evidence. And now you can now be, through the corroborating evidence, you can now be at that place in time, as if you're hearing them. Because this person is saying it and that person is saying it. So now there's the room for error is negligible, right? Is basically not there. So now as if you're hearing Shu'bah speaking, right? But on top of that, he also mentions more information. This other chain tells me more information. He says, oh, it's so and so, and he is a man from the tribe of this and this and this, right? So extra information. That's another reason why you need to have more chains, just like a detective. Like the world of the hadith scholar is a detective, right? Every single time you get a different version of the hadith, you get more information. That's why you need to look at every version of that hadith, not just one version of a hadith. When you see a hadith and it's sahih and it says X is halal, X is haram, stop. Look at every single version of that hadith. Oh, but I don't have access to it. Then don't opine then. Don't come to a conclusion. If you're looking at one hadith, don't do that. Stop. Look at every single hadith, every single version of that hadith, and then that you can find, and every single hadith that goes for or against that. And then you can come to a decision. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Right? And so many people that just jump the gun. The hadith says this, it's haram, khalas, haram. That's being reckless with revelation. That's not good. Right? You shouldn't do that. Okay, inshallah, we'll come to this part here, inshallah ta'ala, next week. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك.